Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Dornsife Discover program. My name is Libby Lopez, and I am a Senior Assistant Director with the Dornsife Office of Admission and Student Success. We're so thrilled to have you join us today as we explore USC and the Dornsife College through the first-generation college student lens. If that sounds like you, if you are the first in your family or one of the first in your family to go to college, you're in the right place. If you're not, you can still stick around and learn some valuable information from some of our wonderful students today. This event is being hosted by the Dornsife Office of Admission and Student Success, and my colleague is helping me today with answering questions. So you may see some of those questions answered in the Q&A box. For the time being, please hold off on submitting questions through the Q&A box, but you will have some time to submit your questions later on. But now I want to bring on our panel of students to introduce themselves so that you know who's here to share their experiences. So let's have them come on camera, and we'll start off with Hagar.
Hi everyone, my name is Hagar. I am a senior here at USC. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and my major is neuroscience. I am doing a master's in law. I am doing a pre-health and pre-law emphasis, and I'm an admissions intern here at the Dornsife Office of Admission, as well as an associate editor for the Journal of Music Industry. It's a law journal, and a director of internal affairs at Cura, which is a health magazine, one of our orgs here at USC.
Hi everyone, my name is Jake Velasquez. I'm a current senior here at USC studying international relations and global business with a concentration in finance. I am originally from Tampa, Florida, but I moved here to Los Angeles for USC. I am a Dornsife ambassador here in the Dornsife Office of Admissions, as well as a first generation mentor, part of the USC First Generation Mentorship Program. And I'm also part of the Latino Business Student Association.
Hi everyone, my name is Donia Afshang Mortazavi. I'm a current junior here at Dornsife. My hometown is Houston, Texas. I study health and human sciences and theater. I'm a double major, and I recently got accepted to a master's program for stem cell research. I'm on the pre-dental track, and I'm currently the president of the Pre-Dental Honor Society, Delta Delta Sigma. I'm involved as a Dornsife ambassador, and I do a lot of theater activities in my free time.
Perfect. Thank you all of you for those introductions. So like I mentioned before, we do have some pre-selected questions to ask the students. We do want to hear from you as well, so we'll open the Q&A a little later on for you to submit your questions. But if you start thinking about those as we go along, and then you can ask them a little later on in this hour. But I want to start off by asking all of you, what thoughts or concerns did you have as a first generation college student when you were going through the admission process? And we'll start off with Hagar, and then we'll move on from Jake and then Danya.
So for me personally, I think one of my biggest concerns was just how I'm going to be perceived by admissions directors, sort of how, because I didn't have like the resources or the knowledge that I knew a lot of my peers had when it came to applying for college. I didn't really know exactly how the application worked, so I didn't know. I knew that my application probably wouldn't be the best presenting or seem like it's the best prepared or something like that. But I didn't want, the reason being that like I don't have those sorts of resources or knowledge to get in the way of how I'd be perceived in comparison to other well-polished applications that had those sorts of resources and support. So that was something that definitely worried me, and like, oh my goodness, what if I use the wrong words and they expect all these like professional words, or they expect certain levels of research or this or that at schools. But yeah, I mean, that was probably my main concern out of anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just echoing what Hagar said. I personally was very unaware of what college was going to look like for me. I didn't really have anyone to rely on to kind of ask them questions about what their college experience was, except for some of my friends' parents. But it's a little bit different when it's your own parents compared to your friends' parents. And I sometimes felt like a burden constantly asking different questions. But after I kind of got through that, and when I actually got to USC, I was also scared that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with my fellow classmates. I felt like they had resources that I didn't have access to. But when I actually got to USC, I was blown away because there are so many resources for everyone. And it's just kind of like what resources you take advantage of and when. And I just feel like here at USC specifically, we just have an abundance of resources for everyone in academia and also in various other sectors, as well as like various clubs where you don't really feel ostracized or like one in a million who doesn't feel like they can't keep up because it's so easy to just keep up with your fellow classmates. And I feel like it's a very collaborative environment that fosters someone to excel rather than to be left behind.
Yeah, kind of picking back off of what Hager and Jake said, I had a very similar experience. I didn't have anyone to really ask. My parents are both immigrants. I'm an immigrant. So it was just figuring things out as we go. And I didn't have those resources like a tutor or anything. So I watched YouTube videos, TikTok videos. I just used the internet to try to find out what's the best way to frame things. But I was myself, and I have to really agree that USC, when I got here, I was scared, like, oh, maybe I won't be on the same level as everybody else. But they have so many communities. Like, everyone is so unique and has access to so many amazing resources, tutoring, free tutoring, so many free resources, especially as like a pre-dental student. And USC really does a great job of making sure no man is left behind.
You all for sharing that. And yes, as you've heard, all of these students here have utilized the resources when they were in high school. And then once they transitioned in, they were also making sure that they were accessing the resources that they needed to move forward and be successful in and outside of the classroom. So kind of segueing from that too, if you can kind of think back into your first year here, what was your transition like during that first year, whether you came in as a freshman or not? And how did you find and build community initially?
Well, I know for myself, I was very overwhelmed. To me, it kind of felt like going back into freshman year of high school. And I was like, okay, there's all these different people I don't know. I'm like in a community where everybody that's around me is a college student. It's not like a regular community where it's people of all different ages and families and so on. How am I supposed to act? What am I supposed to do? But I was very lucky because, or I think every USC student is very lucky to be at USC in the sense that, to me at least, all of the friends that I had made or the people that I was like finding, connecting with had either similar experiences to me, whether it came to being first gen or low income or whatever else it was. So to me, it didn't feel like it was like, oh God, I'm in a completely different population of people in a completely different class, like people who don't understand at all anything that I've gone through and vice versa. But there's a lot of people that have similar experiences to you, and there's a lot that don't, that are also willing to listen and understand. And that's what is expected of you as a student as well. But the transition was definitely not easy. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and act like, it was like perfectly fine. I was immediately on it and everything. But, a transition from high school to college, there's changes in classes. Your classes are going to be a lot different of a dynamic than in high school. It's going to be more difficult in ways that you don't expect. And on top of that, you're living on your own if you're going to be living on campus, or even when you're commuting, you're still living a different type of life. So you have to take care of yourself in different ways that maybe you didn't have to before. So it's really just being able to manage your time and sort of focus on taking care of yourself. That was something like that was probably the biggest lesson I learned my freshman year, was learning how to take care of myself. But like just for me, not just my family and my friends and everyone else, but being able to take care of myself and prioritizing myself.
Yeah, for me, I basically romanticized every second that I was here until this dream became my reality. And I say that because you will walk around campus, like at least I can say that this was my experience. I hope my co-panelists felt the same way. And you're just like, wow, this is a dream. I always call USC kind of like Disneyland, but like of colleges because it's just so pretty. And you just kind of walk around and it's just like, it's just everything, everyone's just so happy, like just such a community. One thing that will say that I really was surprised by was kind of the way the framework that certain classes are, the framework of certain classes. I really thought that I was so behind on a class, and I feel like for me, it was one of my business classes actually, and I thought it was because, I just didn't set enough time apart for this class, and that was my initial struggle at USC was the time management portion. But I wish that like I knew that I should set aside a certain amount of time for this class rather than cramming all this coursework before a midterm. Because, in high school, I can't lie, like some things came a little bit easier than other students. But in college, it's a little different because it's like it's so specialized and so niche to some of your classes that you're going to take that specifically, if you don't really set enough time apart for certain classes, you may not do as well as you think that you're going to do. So, I mean, I would say that's the first thing. But after that first semester, I really got back onto it. I was like, okay, we got it. Let me set this regimen every day, and just kind of finding a routine. That initial routine is really what's going to like allow you to excel here.
Yeah, I agree. Transitioning was difficult, but also like you said, Jake, I really romanticized it. I'm so happy to be here all the time. I look at our campus, I'm like, oh, this is quite literally a dream every single day. Um, but the transition, because I was moving from another state as well, so that was really scary. But I had on-campus housing, and I really think I met a great amount of people through my on-campus housing. And then from there, I met their friends. I said yes to everything. So eventually, when you say yes to like different clubs, like I'm a double major in theater now, even though I want to go to dental school. And I just went and explored the cinema school, and I was like, yeah, this is fun. I could see myself doing some classes here, and I tackled it on because why not? So definitely, I went out to a bunch of places, and to make the transition a little easier, I did talk to my mom every day. Some student, when I was looking at USC, told my mom that she talked to her mom every day. So I was like, okay, I'll do that as well, I guess. And I do. Still to this day, I talk to my mom every single day, and I'm like, Mom, this is what happened on my walk to and from classes. And I just went with the flow. Another thing that really helped the transition is that knowing that everyone else is in the same boat as you, everyone is transitioning from high school to college. At least if you're a freshman transfer, like it's new to everybody. So you kind of just figure it out together. And in terms of classes, it took me about a semester and a half to really adjust. High school classes compared to college classes are, in fact, very different. And kind of what you said, Jake, I did better in my high school classes. And when I got to college, everyone here is also very amazing. So it's an adjustment, but you learn really fast to prioritize yourself. If you do things right, you really never need to pull an all-nighter. My last time I pulled an all-nighter was my freshman year. So after my first semester when I took a writing class, I told myself never again. So time management, you definitely learn really fast.
Thank you all for those anecdotes. And, like Danya said, everything sort of at your own pace. You also said, say yes to everything, but also know, students in the audience that it's okay to take your time and ease your way into college. I think college experiences are going to vary from student to student. And so, yes, put yourself out there and, go to all the activities and the involvements and meet people and engage. But also some people love to, go a mile a minute. And for some people, it's a little bit easier to transition into things, maybe join just a handful of clubs and really commit to those or activities. And that's okay as well. There's going to be a lot for you to do in the time that you're here. And so there's no need to rush. To do all those things. And if you feel, lost in how to find resources or how to manage your time, there's tons of things and services and academic, tutoring and things on campus that'll help you figure out your way. And we can talk about those a little later on, but I want to now jump a little bit and talk about all your academic programs and the things that you're doing in the classroom. And so all of you are different majors and you're doing all different things. And so I'm wondering if you can all talk about first, maybe about your GEs. So folks in the audience, all students at USC, regardless of the major, will complete the general education program. There are about 8 to 12 courses that focus on a variety of perspectives and literacies. And so you have dozens of classes that you can choose from to satisfy those requirements. But you sort of have the same foundation, but you can kind of pick and choose your own academic adventure in a sense. So if you can all sort of share some of your favorite maybe GEs, general education courses that you've taken, and sort of how you've combined them with your primary major, whether that's, taking classes that kind of complement what your primary major is, or maybe it's completely divergent and you're, exploring some of your other interests outside of your primary major. So we'll start again with Hagar and move down.
I came in with the sort of perspective that I didn't want to do any GEs. I wanted to lock in. I wanted to only do my major classes. But I found out how much of a blessing it was to have GEs, especially if you're doing a STEM major. You're gonna want to sort of balance and, feel like you're talking about other subjects than like bio and chemistry all the time. So that ended up being very helpful for me. I also decided to take advantage of it in different ways, whether it's for my major or for my other interests. So one of my, I know for my first year, the first GE that I took it was like a global and environmental perspectives of the Middle East. And it was my first sort of Middle East history class. And that was super exciting to me just because I had never been able to take a history class about my people. So that was just super interesting to me. And we were able to take the perspectives of the Middle East and compare them to our own perspectives here at USC specifically, especially when it comes to the environment, sustainability, gentrification, so on. So that was one of my favorite classes that I ever took at USC. Another one was my sophomore year. I decided to take a law, politics, and public policy class. That was because I have an interest in political science. Had an interest in political science since I don't even know when in high school. And so I was interested in doing a minor in that. But that class, honestly, was so interesting to me, specifically in the law aspect, which is something I had never considered before. And then I switched to doing a legal studies minor, and then I switched to doing a master's in law. So it's something that you might not expect, but it's definitely a good thing. And my GE that I'm taking now, I thought I'd be done. I was finished my requirements last year and I'm still going. So one of mine right now is a computational linguistics course, which you would think like, why on earth are you doing that? Like you're neuroscience, but it relates. And I'm doing it as an upper division course or like a major focus course for my major of neuroscience, mainly because there's a lot of connections. We talk about learning language models. We talk about AI. We talk about neural networks. So it's all things that you wouldn't expect at first, but then you realize, oh wait, this is all brain stuff. Like that makes sense. So yeah, I really enjoyed the plethora of courses that are offered under the GE curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite GE that I ever took was this class under the Thornton School of Music, and it was called Beatles, Stones, and Bowie: Masculinity and Empire. And I was just so drawn to it by the title because like growing up, I always listened to like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, not too much David Bowie, but this course was so interesting because it kind of just followed the three of the Beatles and the Stones, those groups, but also David Bowie and how they all came together and intertwined. And it's so niche, like that is such a niche course. But I will say that the skills that I learned in that course, I still use them to this day because we had two different essays that we had to write in that course where we had 24 hours to write a 2,000 word paper, like only 24 hours. So it's like, okay, you're stressing out a little bit. It's like, wow, but it's like you don't have time to plan for it. So it's like you don't have time to procrastinate, which I really enjoyed that aspect of it because it just made me realize that like the time management skills that I was talking about freshman year, yeah, like you kind of need those and you need to carry those over into this course. But also, kind of like organization and how you shouldn't like thinking twice about something may actually like hold you back rather than push you forward. Those aspects I still carry around to this day because I feel like one thing is that I just have so many assignments in like my different classes and my varying classes that I don't really have time to like go back and like I used to be a perfectionist and like while I still am a perfectionist, it's not like I can get to the nitty-gritty details anymore. I just feel like there's too much going on. But I'm really grateful for that class because one, it was very interesting, very entertaining. Every time I hear the Beatles, the Stones, or David Bowie, I'm always like, wow, I took a class on them. Like I could tell you about where they're from, how they got to where they are. But also just like when I'm writing a paper and it's like, like there's like a character count or a word count of like you have to hit this word count. It's like, okay, I can do this. I've done more before. I can really moving forward. It's like, okay, let me just set aside, get my thoughts, collect my thoughts, and just write. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, so as a freshman, you have to take a writing class and a seminar, and the seminar can fulfill a GE requirement. So my seminar, I took a class about Russia. It was about a city in Russia called St. Petersburg. And, it has nothing to do with anything I study, but it was a nice history class, so I really enjoyed it. And then this year, I'm taking my second requirement for that GE, the second class, and it's another Russia class because I had so much fun learning about that city and just Russian history, which again has nothing to do with anything I study, but I really learned how to manage my time. I never need to pull an all-nighter ever again because of that class. And my professor was very thoughtful, and it was the first professor I really developed a connection with. So I went as far as to email her when I took this Russia class that I'm currently in. And I was like, hi, by the way, I'm in another Russia class because of you. It's really fun. And turns out she was promoted to the department chair and came into my class to speak. So really made me look great in front of my current professor. And it's amazing how I know so much about Russian history now, and I can apply it into my science classes miraculously. We talked about bile salts and like liver things in that Russia class, and back in the day, how they had a lot of medical problems in a certain era. And I was able to discuss it for everybody. Our professor calls on me to kind of give an explanation of these things, and I can use my pre-health classes in my Russia class. So something I never thought would ever happen, but it's a really nice full circle moment.
Definitely. And something you'll learn is that at USC, while you may be focused on a particular concentration or major that you're interested in, we very, very much have a very interdisciplinary space. And so you may learn about a topic, but you may also learn various perspectives about that topic, or you may approach a particular topic from a variety of backgrounds as well and approaches. And so like Danya and, Jake sort of alluded, is that the skills that you're learning in those spaces are going to be applicable to others. So even though you may not use that, history of Russia ever maybe outside of, what you provided as your example, but, the ability to learn that knowledge or, be able to collaborate with others, think critically, be able to write papers, be able to meet 24-hour deadlines. Those are all important skills that you're going to be utilizing in your workspaces and internships, and your skills will just build upon themselves, even if like the nature of what you're learning may not be applicable later on. So that's what's really great about, being able to explore your interest inside of Dorn Science and across the university as well. So, some of these students, and I'll have some of you share is, some students will ask always, can I do a second major? Can I do a minor? Do they have to be in Dorn Science, or can I explore some of the other schools? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. And so I wanted to ask, both Jake and Tanya to sort of share your, other academic interests that you have, sort of how you came upon them, how did you explore them, and are if they are related to what your primary major is, or if they're not, how are all of your major minor combinations sort of fulfilling your academic interests?
Yeah, so I can start. I came into USC as a political science major, and within like, I just kind of got tired of learning about Plato again, over and over again in a lot of my political science classes. So I was like, okay, let me switch my major real quick. So I decided to switch it to international relations, but USC also offers this program called International Relations and Global Business, which I thought was very cool because it's like at the intersection between business and a liberal arts education. And I didn't want to be too, STEM focused with mathematics. So I decided to, take this major where I really have the opportunity to take various international relations courses, love them because I think those classes help you think critically, and also they teach you how to become a better person in society and just learn about the world. But also, taking those business classes, I do have this like interest in learning like technical skills learn through the Marshall School of Business. And so my minor is business law, which I feel like is also at the forefront between like liberal arts and business, because I do have interest of going into law school. I forgot to mention this before, but I'm on the pre-law track. But I do want to go to law school at some point. So because of that, I did want to learn more about the business law and kind of the ethics behind business and how the law is at the intersection with business practices. And I think that very much complements my major because being international relations and global business, you do kind of want to learn about the law and the various avenues that you can take within business because it's not always just numbers. Like there's also just policy that goes behind business decisions.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the flip side. So I am a double major, like I said, in health and human sciences and theater. I came into USC as a health and human sciences major on the pre-dental track from the start. And I really wanted to, our school is just so amazing in the sense that you can access everything, like I was saying. So I would see the cinema students, and the cinema school is really pretty. So I'd walk there and study for my science classes and be like, you know what, let me do some exploration. So I looked into adding a cinema minor at first, but then I realized I want to do more acting. So I added the theater minor, but the real class that inspired me to do this was a class I took called medical clowning. It was a 2-unit class I took with organic chemistry. The professor looks like a clown, funniest person I've ever met in my entire life. And you have a bunch of engineer, sciencey kids with theater comedy kids in one room. There was 25 of us. We got close first day of class. I learned how to juggle. I learned how to treat patients in a funny clown way. We wore clown noses. So after I took that class, the next semester I took a GE that was related to the arts and I took a theater class. So those two kind of the GE art class that I took that was studying theater history and then my medical clowning class inspired me to ultimately add the minor and then I upgraded it to a double major because I had extra time in my schedule. So it was very rewarding, but I never in my life thought I was just scrolling on our class list and I saw medical clowning. What is that? What does that mean? So now I am actually a clown as well as a on the way to becoming a doctor. So anyone needs treatment, I'll make you laugh.
Amazing. And, to that point, sometimes you come in, with particular interests, or you think there's particular classes you might be interested in engaging in. And then sometimes you're looking through the class catalog and you realize there's so many options for you. And sometimes you may be gravitated or, kind of pulled in by a particular title of a class. You're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me engage in it. And so there's so much for you to explore. And, a lot of the classes will satisfy your major requirements, your minor requirements, your GEs, electives. There's so much for you to be able to explore. So, don't feel like you're limited to your primary major of interest. There's so many different things that you've seen these examples of what you can do. And, to that point as well, both Hagar and Danya are completing progressive degrees as well. So if you've contemplated maybe going off to graduate school later on, folks in the audience, or maybe haven't even thought about, what does a master's degree look like after your bachelor's degree? We have progressive degrees here at USC, and so you can actually complete your bachelor's degree at the same time as a master's degree. And again, it doesn't have to be in the Dornside College, it could be elsewhere. And so I'm going to have Hagar and Danya sort of talk about their progressive degrees. If you can share maybe, how you came upon the decision, you wanted to pursue a progressive degree, sort of what the process was like, and anything else you'd like to share about the progressive degree.
Sure, yeah. So like I said, I after taking my law policy, public policy class, I decided to add a minor in legal studies and I was really enjoying it. But I started thinking like, well, USC has a progressive degree program that thing exists. And basically, again, it's like you're able to get a master's and a bachelor's during your time at USC, and it's an accelerated master's program. And so it's very helpful financially and just academically if you want. So also, you don't have to take the GRE. So even better, it's less requirements. But for me, I was trying to decide what sort of PDP I wanted to do. So I was looking through the programs that are offered, but the only one that really truly caught my eye, my gut was like saying like, no, just do the studies in law one. And at first I was hesitant because I was like, well, I'm already doing the minor, but then I looked into the classes that the program offers, and it offers a bunch of like skill-based classes, and it's not just for students who are trying to go into law school or anything like that. In fact, they don't even encourage it for kids trying to go into law school, but it's for people that are going into any sort of career, which I was in a point in my life where I was like pre-grad, pre-law, pre-health, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just needed to try everything to figure it out. And those sorts of classes, like I'm taking a negotiation skills class right now. We take contract drafting, regulatory compliance, effective writing, all these sorts of courses that are really helpful for any sort of career that I go into. I'll be able to know all of the different policies of each organization that I work in. I'll know the sort of like business ethics of any organization that I consider working at, whether it's more of a corporation or if it's like a smaller firm or anything like that. So that's really what got me into it. And I was like, you know what? Like legal studies already, might as well change the minor into a master's, make it sound cooler. So yeah, but that was obviously not one of my priorities. My priority was really just being able to see the genuine value and quality and how it can benefit me by taking this program. Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you're able to brag about like, yeah, I'm doing a master's and a bachelor's, like that's great, but that's not what you're going to be dealing with when you're alone. When you're alone, you're going to be studying, you're going to be working, and you've got to figure out what do you want to spend your time on. So, yeah.
Yeah, my master, the full title is Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine. It's a mouthful. And I ultimately added it because I wanted some more research experience, and I've always been interested in stem cell research, especially in the dental field. Right now, it's being used to regenerate like tooth enamel and basically strengthen the teeth and used for like dental implants. So for dental school, I wanted a more. I'm very lucky that USC has this master. I was looking at the list and I really didn't think I could finish anything in 4 years because I already had a very loaded course plan. But then I realized I was just scrolling through the list and I was so grateful that we have all these opportunities. And I found this one, it stood out to me. It's a 1 year program, optionally 2 years if you want to do extra research. And it's designed more for pre-medical students and students who want to go into research, but I am just so interested in the topic. And a really cool part of my master is that it's actually at the medical school, at the USC Medical School. So amazing part about USC is that since we're a tier 1 research institution, there's so many opportunities to get research. And I talked to my biology professor for advice, and I told her, I was like, do you think this is a good idea? And she said, yes, of course, go for it. So one of the classes that I took for it was they would bring in speakers who talk about their research. And it was a great way for me to get a research opportunity and to meet people in the field and just be up to date with all the knowledge, not just in the dental field, but also in the stem cell field of research in general. And I think it'll make me a better doctor and just have a more comprehensive education and also strengthen my application for dental school when I eventually reach that road. So I love my program.
Thank you both for that. And, if you are interested in learning more about progressive degrees, you can definitely take a look at, those programs now online and see what they're about. Primarily focused right now on applying to USC as an undergraduate, but you don't have to really start thinking about progressive degrees or even, applying to progressive degrees until around your junior year. And so you have plenty of time to kind of see if a progressive degree is something that is a good fit for what you may want to pursue in the future. I still have a couple more questions, but I do want to open up the Q&A for those folks in the audience. So if you have questions, feel free to start submitting those. But I also now want to sort of segue into talking a little bit about outside of the classroom opportunities. So, you all talked about all the great things you're doing inside of the classroom space, and maybe just, Danya, you sort of alluded to some of the research that you are doing with your master's degree, your progressive degree. And so, for folks in the audience, learning what you're learning in the classroom is great. Up to a certain point, it could be theoretical. And what's really great about outside of the classroom opportunities is they allow you to take what you're learning in the class and apply it into a real life space. So it'll either like really solidify what you want to pursue. You're like, yes, this is exactly what I envision. It's great. Or you may find that the things that you're doing, you actually hate, and that's absolutely okay. I think college is a great space for trial and error and figuring out what you may want to do, sort of in a very low stakes kind of place. And so there's a lot of things that you can do outside of the classroom. Some of the areas that we focus on or we talk about here at USC are things like research and internships. You can do service learning opportunities and study abroad. And so I want our students on the panel to sort of share some of those experiences. So I know all of you sort of have research experience in some capacity. And so if you can share a little bit about the research that you're doing, maybe how you found it. And yeah, we'll go round robin again. We'll start with Hagar.
So my research that I did was with the Infant Neuromotor Control Lab. So that's through the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles as well as the Keck School of Medicine, so USC. And the way that I found out about that lab was just by my class. I had a neuroscience colloquium, which is basically a class where a bunch of professors and doctors come in and talk about their research or their projects, whatever they're working on. And one of them had come in, her name is Dr. Beth Smith, and she was doing autism research in infants, and she was using robots and stuff. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, that's kind of crazy. And I wanted to do pediatric neuroscience research because I initially wanted to be a specialist in pediatric neurology. So I was like, this is the bag that I need to get into. And so I just emailed her over the summer, I believe, or maybe the next semester. I was like, hey, this might sound kind of weird, but I saw your presentation in my class last semester, and like I really would love to be in your lab. Please let me in. And she was like, yeah, of course, we'd love to have an undergrad research assistant. And so I did my training, did the work there, and what I love about it is that it's not the traditional lab that you would expect. And being that USC has research in every type of subject, you don't have to do the traditional like sort of wet labs or where you're working with different chemicals or you're working with rats or bugs. And because I'm just not into that personally, I get to work with babies. That was my thing. So that was really exciting. And as for the other opportunities, wait, are we starting with research first or are we doing everything combined?
We can talk about research first, and then we can kind of segue to the other things.
Then that's all I've got on my end.
Thanks, Hagar.
Yeah, so going into school, my internships that I've completed over the previous summers have all been focused on real estate. But this past summer, I had the opportunity to intern with the Massachusetts Commonwealth's Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So my big initiative was like real estate analysis and redevelopment potential for affordable housing initiatives. And last semester, so spring of 2024, I studied abroad in Greece. And I realized that, there is obviously like a housing endemic going on around the world. There's like an affordable housing crisis around the world. And so, like, when I came back from Greece and I, interned for the Commonwealth, I realized that I wanted to combine my love for the or for those two topics, like just my passions for those and like understanding what's going on and what we can do to address these different concerns. And so, I've been doing a lot more research on like policy implementation within those different sectors, especially in Greece, on like what affordable housing looks like and how what initiatives can be taken in order to mitigate the situation. And going forward, like I recently applied to a program called Fulbright, which I'm sure you'll hear about more once you get into academia, because as you graduate, you hear about the program a lot. And, I kind of would love to go back to Greece and kind of do like a deeper dive in what's going on there and what actually can be done, what policies can actually be instituted in order to help with those various situations. So my research really isn't focused on like, let's test things and like go from here. It's more of just like a broader introspective uh, analysis of what's going on. But I will say that the skills that I use within my research of critical thinking and critical writing, of just like diving deep in what data is actually like valuable and what is just like dismissible, I learned through my classes at USC. Because I will say, without those like various classes of just like understanding what we should use and what we can just dismiss, I would just be, analyzing so much data that is really not helping my case at all, or just like any of my analysis.
Yeah, so I've done a few research projects, especially as on the pre-health track. It's recommended to do research. So my first semester ever at USC, they had a Dornsife program where they paired you up with a mentor, and I got paired up with an optometrist who had taken the same classes that I need to. I mean, she had to go to medical school and everything, or ophthalmologist. So through the Dornsife mentorship program, she actually contacted the doctor that she did research with and asked them if I could do research. So that was an amazing opportunity. I literally had research my first semester. Turns out I realized I loved dentistry a lot more after that. I did not stick with the project after 6 months, but it was a really fun experience to go at the medical school. That's where I did the research at. And because I was younger, I did a lot more data entry. But that semester, I took a biology class, and my biology professor suggested I look at a Dornsife program on Catalina Island. So, Catalina Island is an island off the coast of California. And my professor, her husband was one of the professors on the island. So, she said, you know what, you should look into this program. I don't have anything to do with environmental science or aquatic microbiology, but I figured why not? And the class I took was recommended for pre-health people. So I took a class on Catalina Island through Dornsife I lived there for a month and I did research for that month. And that was a lot more on par with what I want to do. I did a lot of pipetting, wet lab stuff, DNA like analysis. We found a new species of cyanobacteria, which was really cool. So that was how I got my research opportunity quite literally through my professor and through the Dornsife mentorship program. After that, I did some research at the business school, but it was more data entry, boring stuff. So there's a lot of opportunities, especially if you're looking more medical route because of the medical school access we have, but our professors usually are all involved in research in some way as well. So just by talking to them, so many doors get opened.
There's definitely a lot of research opportunities here on campus. If you haven't contemplated research before or not even sure what research is about, there are even within your majors like Research 101 courses where they sort of teach you what research can look like in your field. They'll, bring in specialists or, folks, as guest speakers to come talk about research in that field. And there's also funding opportunities across Dornsife and USC that you can apply to get funding for some of the research that you may be part of that maybe isn't funded or not funded in the way that you're looking for. And we have funding for fall, spring, and summer months as well. So lots of opportunities to engage in research. And research, at the end of the day, really is just having a question to something and digging further into that topic. So definitely, look into research. It might be something that might surprise you that you may want to engage in as a student here at USC. Another thing that students like to engage in are internships as well. And so if internships are more the route that you're looking for, there's a lot of opportunities to find internship opportunities. Our career center is open to all USC students, and then we have our career pathways office that's open specifically and focused on our Dornsife students. And so you can utilize both of those offices and other resources on campus to find internship opportunities. I know that both Jake and Hagar have done internships in different spaces. So if you can both briefly talk about some of the internships that you've been part of, maybe how you found them and sort of what you did in those internships.
Well, like I said, I'm an intern at the Dornsife Undergraduate Office of Admission. So obviously it's going to sound biased since we're in this panel, but I do really enjoy the internship a lot. I have a great team of staff to look up to. They've all been great mentors to me when it comes to just my role as an intern here, but also just as a student and just someone who's trying to figure out how life is supposed to work. So they've helped me a lot with being able to sort of get more involved in things that certain like activities or organizations that Dornsife has to offer and USC has to offer, and different resources that can help me in my career development. But along with that, the internship was very important to me because as a first-gen student, I didn't really know how to apply. I didn't understand admissions at all. And so not only has working here been very informative for me, but has helped me help other students in making the admissions process seem a little bit more accessible and a little bit easier to sort of navigate. So that was really helpful. The other internship that I've done last semester was through our actual like service learning program, which it's one of it's our biggest service learning program. I think it's the oldest in the country. It's called JEP, or Joint Educational Project. And so that just has a whole bunch of projects within it. So I was doing the pre-law project where you can sort of choose your top two firms or nonprofit orgs that you want to work with. as an intern in and like for the semester, and I got my top choice, which was Parents, Educators, and Students in Action. So it is a nonprofit organization to help sort of veer students that have been involved in the juvenile justice system away from that sort of school to prison pipeline, and more so giving sort of rehabilitative measures or lighter consequences that may help them in different ways as opposed to like juvie. So that was really helpful, and it's also meant to help improve legal literacy in high school students as well. And so that was just really cool, just being able to teach law at a sort of high school level and seeing how excited the students get, considering that's not something that they typically learn in school that much as they would in college or in law school. But you can tell that they already have a very early interest in it. So it allows them to sort of begin to consider that as an option, maybe for learning later in their life or as a job or just an interest of theirs, maybe in their research or in the future. But those were my primary experiences, and I find extreme value in both.
Yeah, so I actually started interning my freshman year and I interned for like a commercial real estate firm for this company called Fannie Mae. It's like a government entity. And I was on their New York City team, which was like their specialized name is like Just Lenders. Sounds really weird, but I don't know. My interest is in real estate, like commercial real estate. Sophomore summer, I pivoted and wanted to do something more on like the legal aspect because I do want to end up or go to law school at some point. So I interned for a law firm back in Tampa, Florida. Um, and I just did a lot of like policy implementation and just kind of like legal analysis, like working side by side with some of the attorneys and paralegals and just like analyzing how to view a case. Moving forward, like junior year or last summer, I interned for the government. I want to do something like in the crossroads of both of them, of like real estate as well as like a legal implementation. And so I wanted to be in Massachusetts because Massachusetts was working on like a housing bond bill. And it actually passed, which was crazy, but it was like Affordable Housing Act. It's like a $5.2 billion bill. And it was really cool because before it passed, like there was so much policy implementation that went into it, but also like for redevelopment sector, because I was on the redevelopment team, it was just kind of analyzing how we can utilize underutilized parcels and redeveloping them into more affordable housing units. Um, Really cool, super interesting because it's like, how do we, turn these Excel sheets and how do we turn them into like full-blown reports and how a certain clause in a bill will affect these spreadsheets. I don't really know how to explain it other than like it was just super interesting seeing like impactful change and tangible change that's going on. And even right now, I'm interning for a firm called Berkadia, which is a commercial real estate firm and I'm, going back into this commercial real estate aspect because I'm just like it's just my interest. So it's more finance focused, but yeah, I mean I think internships are a way an avenue for individuals to just kind of explore their interests and decide like, hey, maybe this is for me, maybe this isn't. It's a great resume builder, a great way to put stuff under your belt and say that I've tried this, I like this, I want to continue, or I don't like this. I realized that I don't really like something that's way too finance heavy because I'd rather see something that's like tangible that I can see like flourish. So that's why I do like real estate because it's more something that's like, okay, we're talking about this property, whereas like other finance heavy, like if your interest is in finance, obviously like, it's always there for you, but for me it's like I'd rather see something that's a little bit more tangible. And I still have those like aspirations to go into law, so I did want to exercise my legal practices within a certain capacity.
Definitely. Thank you both for sharing those experiences. And like I mentioned before, for students in the audience, if those sound like great opportunities or exciting things, but you're like, well, how do I navigate that? How do I even find these opportunities? We have career centers here on campus that'll kind of help you prepare, fine tune your resume, help you practice for those internships, and help you find these opportunities so that you can see if these are the things that you may want to pursue in the future. The final kind of question I have for you all before we jump into our audience questions is, I know that both Jake and Danya, you sort of mentioned earlier that you both both did have had study abroad experience, either like a local abroad experience or a global one. And so maybe you can share a little bit about your study abroad experiences, how you found them, what the, courses or opportunities entailed, and anything else you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to go abroad when I got into college because I just was so fascinated by anything global, hence why I chose international relations as my major. So USC offers so many study abroad programs. I cannot stress this enough. I feel like you could go anywhere around the world with you through USC. I think the only country you can't go to or the only territory is like Antarctica. I'm not really sure. There might actually be an Antarctica program, and I'm like 100% sure. Oh, well, there we go. I guess there is. But I wanted to go to Europe. People recommend you go other places, but I really wanted to go to Europe because I wanted to travel around while I was in Europe, and it's very easy to do once you're in the Eurozone. And so I was looking at the different programs USC offers, and USC actually has like a program called USC Madrid and USC Paris, where you can go and study abroad there, where it's like you're with a cohort of other USC students. But for me, I really wanted to do something, really out of my comfort zone, which is why I chose Greece because Greek is like it's a new language, it's very complex, it's like a whole different alphabet, just very interesting. So I was pleasantly surprised that when I got to Greece, there was 30 other USC students studying abroad in the same program as me, and I felt so like at home, but also like in a new environment. And I just have to say, like, I had so much fun, made so many long-lasting connection and friendships, but also made connections with my professors there, who they also opened my eyes to, what opportunities I have to, dive into the global sector and like how someone can really exercise their global citizenship in order to, find these skills that you can't really find in America and just like live a different life. I think the point of study abroad is to really like I said, exercise your global citizenship, but also just like see how the world is different, how the world thinks in different ways. I feel like we live in such an American-centric mindset of just understanding, that the US is the way that it is. One aspect of USC that's beautiful is that we have so a large demographic of international students. And so you're constantly interacting with international students who have a different viewpoint than you. And I think it can be quite interesting to see why they think the way they think. And I feel like my drive is to understand why people's intellectual curiosity is adapted to the way that it is. So going to Greece really helped me, understand that, go to a whole different part of the world that I never thought was tangible before I got to college. But once I studied abroad, I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I'll go over it really briefly. I did a study abroad on Catalina Island, which is more local. That's where I did my research. And then we have Maymesters. So basically, if you can't afford to go for a semester in terms of time, then you could go for 1 month, May or July. We have Maymesters, July mesters. So my Catalina Island trip was a Maymester, which is why I did it in the month of May. And then last May, I registered for a trip that was Italy, Serbia, and Bulgaria. So I took a class about pharmacy history in those three countries, and it was a really good time. I had an amazing time. Professor was really funny. It was about 25 of us. My roommate and I registered together. And like Jake was saying, there's so many opportunities to study abroad. So genuinely, whatever country you're thinking of, I'm pretty sure my professor went to Antarctica. So pretty much every continent can be touched.
Thank you. Thank you both for sharing that. So, with the amount of time that we have left, I'm going to go through some of these questions in the chat very quickly. So, somebody asked about the different, honors classes in high school. How does that translate into the college space? So, are there honors programs? And what does that look like at USC? So, we don't have honors in the sense of that you'll get extra, points on your GPA or it'll show up on your diploma, but there are honors theses that you can participate in your senior year. And so if you're contemplating, wanting to challenge yourself a little bit, once you become an upperclassman in college in your respective major, you can partake in an honors thesis program. But we don't have like honors courses, with the exception of if any of you are interested in honors level biology and chemistry courses, you can apply if you are a natural science major or health and human science major to our freshman science honors program. Once you're admitted to USC, you have the ability to apply for that through your portal as well. And then if you want a little bit more challenge in reading and writing, we also have thematic option. And so typically during your freshman and junior year, you're also taking these alternative courses to the general education courses. And all of that is available on our website. You can learn more about them. We even have podcasts that kind of cover those topics. Somebody had questions about if transferring from a community college satisfies credits. So in community college, you're going to be completing a lot of the GEs and in reading math and English that you need for transferring into USC, but also for kind of your foundational GEs here at USC. You'll still need to complete some of those GEs once you're here. But typically most students that are applying into USC and are admitted into USC have completed a number of those requirements for their degree. And then there was a question about and maybe this actually will be a great final question. So we have a student who asked about experiencing imposter syndrome as a first-generation student. And so they were asking, how do you sort of ground yourself in, kind of experiencing this? And I think with that, if any of the students in our panel can also kind of follow up with any general advice that you want to provide these students. And so that'll be our final question. We'll start with Hagar and then Jake and Danya.
That was definitely something I was thinking about throughout this panel. I believe I was lucky my freshman year. I didn't feel that much imposter syndrome, although or maybe I'm lying to myself, but I think for my biology and chemistry classes, for sure, for like the sort of basic pre-med classes that you're taking, I tended to feel like maybe I'm just not like a STEM kid, maybe like, or the idea of a STEM kid, or I'm not as smart. And it was really just all in my head, really. It was honestly just all in my head because, like it was said, the people in your classes, they're more on the same boat with you than you think. You really just, I think the biggest thing that helped me was the friends that I made. And that sounds very sort of cliche, very corny, but I mean, it truly is the best solution is that the friends that you make are supportive and they're also striving to do their best and they're most likely also struggling just like you. I mean, college is a challenge and it's a challenge worth taking, in my opinion. And all of us are doing our absolute best. And I think the greatest lesson that I learned was that, truly everyone is going through something different. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to show in certain ways. So just remember that, just keep that in mind. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's honestly interesting to go into school feeling like an outsider, but once you kind of get here and you facilitate your community through various organizations, you really settle in and you'll like find that this is your community. You are part of the Trojan family, and it's so supportive if you use your resources.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow that up. It's really scary, especially because everything is so new, but as we were saying, everyone is in the exact same boat. So it might take a few tries, but eventually you'll find your friends and you're gonna move up, do everything together. So we've all been there. Some of us are still there sometimes.
Thank you all for that. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon and submitting your questions. Please do keep in touch with us if we weren't able to answer your questions. My colleague is putting our contact information in the chat. We also have a number of sessions still left throughout the end of October, so definitely take a look at those and join those to ask additional questions. But thank you so much for joining us, and good luck on application season and your senior years. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and fight on.